Hey, and welcome back to Ronnie the Reader. Today we are going to be discussing my January wrap-up, so the books that I read in January of 2024. Now, full disclosure, I am filming this on the 28th, so there is still some days left in January. So there is definitely a possibility that I'm going to be finishing more books. Today I have currently 7 books that I've already finished to talk about. I also have 2 DNFs that I do want to talk about. Just to kind of give my brief reasons and descriptions on why I did not finish those books, because I am trying to just DNF more in this year instead of kind of pushing through a book for the sake of finishing it and it end up being like a 3-star read. But I'm going to go ahead and start with the book that I'm currently in the middle of that I'm probably going to finish by the end of the month. And that book is Lose You to Find Me by Eric J. Brown. Now, I just recently purchased this, and next week you're in fact going to see it in a book haul video. But I have already started reading this, and I'm 50% of the way through. I don't know if you can see my bookmark there, but I'm about 50% of the way through. So I'm actually going to probably end up finishing this tonight or tomorrow, just depending on when I end up finishing it. I do have plans to read it tonight. Whether I actually finish it tonight or wait until tomorrow, we'll end up seeing. But yeah, I don't want to say too much about this video or about this book, because it is going to be in a vlog that I'm going to be posting in 2 weeks from this video for Valentine's Day, where I'm reading some like male YA, or I guess one's adult, but 2 YA and 1 adult male romances. So you'll see all of my thoughts for this particular book in that video when it does come out in a couple of weeks, so I'll save it till then. And then as far as DNFs, I do have one book that I have physically that I ended up DNFing, and that is My Heart is a Chainsaw. If you've seen a couple of my past videos, you know that I was pretty excited for this, and I had been attempting to read it for a long time. I originally started it actually in September of last year and got about 60 or so pages into it and put it down because I just wasn't liking it. And then I ended up actually checking out the audiobook to kind of help me get past that first push and just really get into the story. So I ended up listening to the audiobook at about the 50% mark, and I ended up DNFing it mostly because I just did not enjoy being in our main character's point of view, and I just really didn't connect with the main character, Jade. This particular book is following Jade as she kind of is like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, she is super into slasher films and like 80s horror, and she's convinced that there's like a slasher film come to life basically in her town. And I didn't like Jade. I found her super annoying, and I don't necessarily need characters to be likable or to like any characters that I'm reading from in order to finish or even enjoy a book. But just the way that Jade specifically was written and her voice was, I didn't like. I couldn't stand. So instead of just pushing through to finish the book for the sake of finishing it, I knew at most it would be 3 stars, so I just decided to DNF it. And then my second DNF for this month was The Long Run by James Acker. This was another like YA male romance, and I read 2 chapters of this book. I think the initial premise, or the premise, is that there is 2, like, I think they're rival sports, obviously they're playing sports, but rival like track athletes or something like that, and they like end up, I guess, falling in love. But the reason I DNF'd this one is kind of petty, but you know, we all have those little things that we just don't enjoy about certain books. Mine is like excessive cursing. I just really don't like it. So there was just too much cursing in the first 2 chapters of this book, and it was bothering me, and I wasn't going to get past it, so I just decided to DNF it. The first book that I finished in the month of January is Fake Dates and Mooncakes by Cher Lee. This is a YA male romance. I'm very much in my YA male romance era right now. Basically, this book is following the story of 2 like seniors in high school who kind of have a chance meeting from our main character making like a food delivery from his family's restaurant. And then it ends up being where it's kind of like a fake date plot. He gets invited to this wedding with his main love interest, and it just kind of goes from there, I guess. I don't really know how else to describe it. The book was only a 3.5 star rating for me, so it's not like it was super memorable. Like, it was fine, it was serviceable, it was cute. I didn't have any like major issues come up with it. It's something that's probably not going to stick with me. Like, it's already only the month of January, and I honestly don't remember too much about this book at this point. But I definitely would read other Shirley works. I think this was that author's like debut novel and their first work. I'm not sure if they have others out, but if they ever do come out with anything else, I probably would pick it up. One like wasn't super memorable, didn't super stick out to me, so just unfortunately was a bit of a miss, but still I think a good overall read. Just wasn't the most perfect one for me. Book number 2 that I've actually finished in the month of January is actually Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman. I'm sure pretty much everyone knows what Heartstopper is. It's following the story of Nick and Charlie. Volume 5 is the second to last volume. It's the penultimate volume of this graphic novel series that follows Charlie and Nick as they are basically exploring their first major relationship with each other. Charlie was previously known to be gay, and Nick is someone who is discovering his sexuality in the first couple of volumes. By the time we get to volume 5, they are more of an established couple, and so it's more so dealing with the relationship struggles of being a young couple. And so I end up giving this 5 stars. Of course, it's, a Heartstopper volume. It really always hits you in the feels. This one definitely explores some tougher topics, but also topics of sexuality and sex within relationships, and what does that mean when it's one, your first relationship, two, your first same-sex relationship. As you know, that's not the super publicly accessible, like, educational information out there. Like, as far as schools, you definitely have to do kind of your own bit of research on those sorts of things. Speaking from experience here. And so it's definitely like, just good. Heartstopper is good. If you're watching me, I'm sure you've heard of Heartstopper before, either from Netflix or from reading the volumes. And volume 5 definitely does not disappoint in this series. Okay, and then book number 3 that I finished in the month of January was going to be, or is, The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. This is book number 2 in the Broken Earth trilogy. I read the first book in the series, the 5th season, earlier last year in 2023, I think in the summer, right around there. And the premise of this book, or I guess of the series in general, is that there are these kind of catastrophic seasons that end up kind of overtaking this like fantasy realm or fantasy world that we are in, that are super devastating and are just super uncontrollable and very deadly when they kind of take over. And there are people who have more magical properties that can control some of the elements. This particular book is picking right up from where book 1 left, so I don't want to say too much as there is spoilers involved in that, but I ended up giving this one 3 stars. It worked less for me than the first book, which I ended up giving 4 stars to, mostly because I ended up being spoiled on like the major reveal. And while I thought the aspects of the novel were still good as far as the writing and the themes, specifically revolving around grief and family, were very well explored. This book I just found very difficult to really get into, and I'm definitely the minority. Like, this book has won a Hugo Award. Everyone really loves this series in general, like constantly is giving it 5 out of 5 stars. So I just think this was a bit of a miss for me as like a reader who doesn't read too much fantasy, to be honest. I just was really struggling to really get into the book, but there were good aspects. I mean, of course, the writing is good. Like, N.K. Jemisin is a really, really great writer. The themes explored in this one, while still revolving around grief, are revolving a little bit more around kind of inner strength and finding your inner strength and using that for either power or like gain or selfish gain, being selfish versus selfless. Like, do the needs of one outweigh the needs of many, or however that phrase goes, like that kind of situationship going on in this novel. So just didn't end up working for me. I do have The Stone Sky and I am going to get to it eventually. I don't know if I'm going to prioritize it for this year. I feel like I should while the series is still a little bit more fresh in my mind, but it's just something where I'm like a little scared that it's just not going to hit again. But, we'll end up seeing, and I'll definitely just kind of keep you updated on how I feel about the series overall. But I would recommend this, even though I only gave it 3 stars. Like, I think the series is good. I just don't think it's a series for me as someone who, like I said, doesn't read too much fantasy. I think if I tried to read this after I had been exposed to a little bit more fantasy, maybe it would be a little bit better and I would find it a little bit easier to get into. But I would still recommend it, obviously. The next book that I read in January is a St. Martin's Press title, and so there is currently the boycott going on with St. Martin's Press, and I am doing my best to participate in that and refrain from reviewing those books. So I am not going to be reviewing this particular book, at least for right now. And I'm trying my best. Like I said, I'm trying to really track some publishers, but truth be told, I don't pay attention to publishers that often, so if I ever do mess up and kind of miss like an imprint or something, definitely feel free to let me know. I know I haven't spoken too much about like the boycott on this particular channel, so I wanted to bring it up now when I did read this book. But yeah, so moving on to the next book that I actually can be talking about. It's going to be I Like Me Better by Robbie Weber. And this is another male-male YA romance, and this is following our main character, Zach, who is a star soccer player, is kind of dealing with troubles of stepping into the captain spot for his senior year during the soccer team, while he also is getting involved with this boy he meets while doing community service in the summer for a prank that he ends up taking the fall for that he didn't actually do. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I'm still not completely set on this. This also is going to be in the Male Romance vlog, so I will kind of save a majority of my thoughts for that particular vlog. But I thought this was good. I definitely liked Robbie Weber's first book better than this one, but I thought it was fine. It was serviceable. I'm happy that it is a realistic portrayal of kind of young teenage male romance, and I'm happy that those books are more available, but the book did leave me lacking in some spots, so that's kind of why it was 4 stars, mainly with some kind of character motivations and that the way that the book wraps some of the things up just like didn't completely work for me. So it's totally good. Like, I definitely would recommend it, but I think that his other book was a little bit better, but I definitely will still be checking out, you know, the rest of his published works as long as they are interesting to me. But if they're, you know, still going to be like contemporary YA male romances, I will probably still continue to be picking them up. The next book that I finished was actually my favorite of the month, and that was Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. And I actually ended up giving this book 5 stars. I really loved it. This book is following, it's split into multiple timelines, and I was a little confused about what the initial kind of timelines or premise of the novel was. But the first timeline is taking place in 1902, and it is set at this school called Brookhaunts. It's an all-girls school, and it centers around the main characters of Clara and, oh gosh, what was the other girl's name? Flo and Clara. And Flo and Clara, they actually, while they're the main focus, the story is not actually told from really their points of views. And they are actually dead for most of the novel and their point of view. So you're actually following other characters surrounding Brookhaunts and kind of Flo and Clara's impact on them and the Plain Bad Heroine Society, which Flo and Clara created, and how that settles on top of Brookhaunts. And then the second timeline, or the second major story, is taking place in modern day, and they're actually making a movie about Flo and Clara's story that a writer wrote like a nonfiction book about Flo and Clara and about the school of Brookhaunts, and that movie is now being adapted into, or that book is now being adapted into a movie, and the second plot line is that. So you're getting kind of alternating chapters between these two very different stories, but they are paralleled really well together. And this book is long. It's about 600 and some pages, like a little bit over that, and it's split into about 2 parts. And I will say I found the first part to be a little bit more compelling and interesting than the second part, but the second part is still just as good, and the second part is more where the kind of horror elements take place. I wouldn't say this book is scary, maybe a little bit more unsettling and thought-provoking is how I would describe it overall, and it was just a complete 5-star read from top to bottom. All of the things worked for me in here. I loved the 2 plot lines. I really connected with our main characters in a way where you could really see their flaws while also the aspects of their personality that make them good people overall. All of those things are in here. It just feels it makes the book to feel like a very well-rounded story. And like I said, since the plot lines are so parallel to each other, of like kind of similar themes going on, it just kind of makes for jumping back and forth between the different timelines just that much more interesting, because something will happen kind of at the end of one, and then you'll jump into another timeline and you'll be kind of sucked back into that story, and then you'll jump back, and it definitely keeps you on your seat and wanting you to constantly move forward to the next chapter. And I read this book through a mixture of both physical read and audiobook reading, and I can say I definitely recommend both. The physical book here has like illustrations on some of the pages, and the audiobook is also narrated very, very well. I don't think it was a full cast. I think it was actually just one person. Here's an example of a illustration in the book, but the audiobook was just really fantastic as well. So highly recommend this. This was definitely my favorite of the month. I'm just really happy that I decided to pick this up, because I was definitely apprehensive. I didn't know if it was a story for me. It was really long, but it just ended up being exactly everything I could have hoped for out of this story to, really like suck me in and just completely blow me away. All right, and then finally, as of now, the last book that I have finished in the month of January is First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. This is a brand new mystery thriller book that just was released this month, and it is following our main story of Evie, or our main character of Evie, who is kind of seemingly living the like perfect life. She kind of has a great boyfriend, they are living together, things are going really well, but Evie is actually lying. So she was kind of given this personality to infiltrate this man's life for her boss that's only known as like Mr. Smith, and then the story kind of goes from there, and you kind of figure out why Evie is, being essentially sent to target this man and what they're looking for, and you get a glimpse into some of her other past identities that she's kind of slipped in and out of in the past. Giving this book 4.5 stars. It was super, super close to a 5-star rating. It was really fast paced. The audiobook is only about 8 to 9 hours, and so I flew through it in just about a day. The book is one of those kind of popcorny type thrillers. Every chapter is kind of ending with like a little bit of a mini cliffhanger and wanting you to move forward. But I thought the book was actually very, very well plotted out and made logical sense. There wasn't anything that was like too over the top. I mean, of course, it's a kind of like high octane domestic mystery thriller, so there are some over the top elements. Do people actually do these sorts of things? Do people actually act like this at some sorts of points of time? Maybe not necessarily, but it's just fun. It's a fun read. There wasn't anything that was like super offensive or just really dumb that would take you out of the story, at least in my opinion. And I know this is getting really, really good reviews, so I think most people are kind of the same opinion. I definitely think this will be a hot thriller throughout the year. Definitely could see this popping up in the mystery thriller, like Goodreads category later on in the year. You obviously are going to be finding out like who Mr. Smith is and what they want with Evie and why Evie has taken on the personality of Evie, and like what were some of the stories behind her past works and how is that playing into the present day story. All of that was good, but there was just something a little bit missing, and I can't exactly put my finger on it, so I feel bad like knocking off a half a star for that or something, but it didn't feel like a full 5-star. And so I just couldn't rate it a full 5-star, unfortunately. But I would definitely recommend it, and maybe after sitting with it for a while, I could maybe come around to the 5-star, but at least immediately upon finishing it and over the last couple of days, it was just a 4.5. And that is it. Those are all of the books that I have read and or DNF'd in the month of January. So definitely let me know what you think of these books, if you've read any of them, if you're planning on reading any of them, and let me know what, of course, you have read throughout the month of January. What's been your favorite read? What are you looking to pick up in the next month of February? I know for me, some of my February plans are getting to some more mystery thrillers, because I was not reading as much in the month of January. I definitely was reading a lot more romance, but that is because I am doing that romance vlog. So you'll see that pretty soon. But yeah, I'm just happy to be kind of back on a reading kick. The last time I read 7 books in a month, like, I couldn't even tell you. I don't think I did that at any point last year, maybe once, but yeah, just happy to kind of be back in my reading mood and just ready to kind of take this energy into the rest of the year. So let me know what you thought about, any of these books and what you read in the month of January, like I said, and I will talk to you soon with another video. Next week's going to be a book haul, so we'll see you then, but until then, bye.